All right, let's jump right in. We all know how critical hospitals are, right? But trying to actually fix one? I mean, tackling the really deep-rooted problems? That's a whole other level of difficult. So where would you even start?
You know, the legendary Peter Drucker really hit the nail on the head with this one. He said a hospital is the most complex organization ever devised. And when you think about it, he's so right. It's not just one thing. It's a web of dozens of systems. You've got people, tech, processes, all tangled together and running at 1,000 miles an hour. That's why just slapping a simple fix on a problem almost never works.
So you can't just put a Band-Aid on the symptoms, you know? Things like long ER wait times or medication mistakes, those are just the fever. You've got to dig deeper. You need a real diagnostic tool to figure out what's actually causing the illness at its core.
And this is where the approach gets really interesting. What if we treat the hospital itself as the patient, right? Just like a doctor does a head-to-toe physical, we can do a full organizational checkup on the hospital. We look at everything, its structure, its workflows, its results.
The whole point of this exam is to find the root cause, and that's the key. We're not talking about the obvious surface-level problem. We're talking about the fundamental breakdown in a process that's causing that problem to happen in the first place. Nailing this, well, it's the difference between temporary relief and a real cure.
Okay, so how do we actually do this diagnosis? What's the tool for the job? Well, luckily for us, some very smart folks in quality improvement came up with a fantastic, super visual way to basically map out the anatomy of any problem.
It's called a cause and effect diagram, but honestly, everyone calls it a fishbone diagram. And yeah, it's because it literally looks like a fish skeleton. It was invented way back in the 60s by a guy named Kaoru Ishikawa, and its genius is its simplicity. It gives a team a perfect framework to just get all the possible causes of an issue out on the table.
So here's how you build one. You start with the fish's head, and that head is the problem itself, the effect. The team has to agree on one super clear, specific problem statement. That becomes the bullseye, the one thing everyone is aiming to fix. From there, you draw the spine, or the backbone, and then you add the main ribs branching off. Now, these big ribs aren't the actual causes yet. Think of them as buckets or categories for where you might find the causes. It's a great way to structure your brainstorming so you don't miss anything big.
All right, now comes the fun part. The team just starts brainstorming every possible specific cause they can think of, and each idea becomes a smaller bone on the appropriate rib. The key here is no bad ideas. The goal is just to get everything out in the open. You end up with this amazing visual map of the entire problem.
Okay, that's the theory, but let's make this real. Let's actually walk through building one for a super common and really serious problem that hospitals face all the time.
First things first, we need our main categories, those big ribs. Now, if you were in a factory, you might use something called the 6 M's, but a hospital, that's all about service. So a different set of categories, like the 4 P's, people, process, policy, and plant, which is basically technology and the physical environment. That framework just fits a whole lot better.
So let's do it. Let's put patient falls at the head of our fish and just watch how this organizes everything. Under the people rib, you might brainstorm things like staffing shortages or communication mix-ups. For process, maybe the risk assessments aren't done the same way every time. Under policy, maybe there's no clear written-down rule for how to handle high-risk patients. And for plant/technology, it could be something as basic as poor lighting or a broken bed alarm. All of a sudden, you see it, right? A patient fall is almost never just one person's fault. It's a system failure with tentacles reaching into every corner of the hospital.
And here is a huge pro tip from people who do this for a living. Save the people category for last. Always. Why? Because it stops the natural human tendency to blame an individual. It forces the team to look at the system first, the processes, the policies, the tools. More often than not, what looks like human error is really just a person struggling with a badly designed system. This whole approach helps create what's called a just culture, where the focus is on fixing the system, not pointing fingers.
Okay, so we've diagnosed the problem, we've got some potential root causes, and we have ideas for fixes. Great. But how do we know if any of it is actually working? Well, just like with a patient, we have to monitor the hospital's vital signs.
And that's where something called quality indicators come into play. Think of these as the hospital's blood pressure, its temperature, its heart rate. They are standardized, evidence-based metrics that let you track with real data if the changes you're making are actually improving things for patients.
And why is this so critical? I mean, look at this number. The U.S. spends something like $3.6 trillion a year on healthcare.
The scale is just mind-boggling. So even a tiny improvement in quality or efficiency can have an absolutely massive ripple effect, not just on people's lives, but on the entire economy.
Now, one of the most important vital signs you can check comes straight from the source, the patient. There's a national survey called HCAHPS, and it's all about the patient's experience. It asks about things that are directly tied to our patient falls problem, right? Like, how quickly did someone respond when you pressed the call button? Or did the nurses talk to you about needing help? This is the real-world feedback that tells you if your changes are actually making a difference to the people you're trying to help.
And it's not just patient surveys. Hospitals are tracking a whole dashboard of other vital signs. For our falls example, they'd definitely be looking at something called hospital-acquired conditions, or HACs, because a serious injury from a fall counts as one of those. And listen, this isn't just about doing the right thing, it's about money too. Programs like value-based purchasing literally tie a hospital's Medicare payments directly to how well they perform on these kinds of quality metrics. So doing better means getting paid more.
So, when you put it all together, what's the prescription for a healthier hospital? Well, there's no magic pill. It's really about a disciplined, continuous process of improvement.
And this is basically the playbook right here. Step 1, define your problem, crystal clear. 2, use the fishbone to brainstorm and dig for those root causes. 3, analyze what you found and decide where to focus your energy first. And finally, step 4, use those quality indicators to measure your progress. And then, you start the cycle all over again.
And that's the real takeaway here. This isn't a one-and-done project. Real, lasting improvement is a complete culture shift. It's about getting into a constant rhythm of diagnosis, treatment, and monitoring. It never really stops.
The reason this tool is so powerful is that it takes a messy, complex problem and makes its hidden structure visible for everyone to see. And you can use it for anything, not just in a hospital. Which kind of leaves us with one final question for you to think about. What's the first problem you're going to diagnose?